Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Hazel-Anne Sandy, and I'm the Managing Director and founder of CaribERISK, a specialized consultancy firm. We focus on risk management, compliance, strategy development and execution, and governance throughout the Caribbean, assisting financial institutions, businesses, public sector organizations, and community groups. Over the years, through CaribERISK, I have dedicated myself to assisting organizations in gaining a clearer understanding of risk, accountability, decision making, and long term sustainability, not just theoretically, but within the real world Caribbean context. I am launching this program because often meaningful discussions occur only after problems arise. Many assume these discussions are reserved for banks, insurance companies, regulators, or governments. However, the reality is that issues such as risk, compliance, governance, and development impact every household, business, church, and nation, particularly in small island states like ours. This platform aims to simplify complex subjects such as risk, compliance, governance, national development, and public accountability in a manner that is practical, honest, and rooted in our Caribbean experiences. It is also a space for conversation where you can pose questions either publicly or privately, and where I will offer guidance, insights, and potential solutions whenever possible. The platform is dedicated to freely sharing knowledge to help build stronger institutions, communities, and ultimately nations. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I do believe that experience shared responsibly can help us make better decisions before problems become crises. That is the spirit of this program. So today I want to start with a simple question. What is risk and why should you care about it before a crisis forces you to? So in this video, I'll explain what risk really is, why it matters, and why waiting until crisis is the most expensive decision of all. So let's start the conversation before the damage is done. So we often talk about risk only after something goes wrong. After a business closes, after a storm causes damage, after debt becomes unmanageable, or after people are already under pressure. So by the time we start asking questions, the cost has already been paid. So when many people hear the word risk, they think of fear, danger, or bad outcomes. But risk is not about panic. Risk is simply uncertainty, the possibility that things may not go as planned, and uncertainty exists in everyday life. So let's make it personal. So when, each time you make a decision, you take on some level of risk. When you start a business, when you take a loan, when you rely on one income, when you delay the maintenance of your car, or even when a country borrows money or depend on a single industry. Risk is not rare. It is constant. So in, our small Caribbean economies, risk matters even more. We have limited buffer. We depend heavily on tourism, imports, and the global markets we don't control. One storm, one policy change, one economic shock, can affect thousands of lives at once. That reality means we cannot afford to treat risk as an afterthought. Whether we manage it consciously or not, risk is always present. Ignoring it does not make it disappear. So let's look at risk versus reality. So when risk is not discussed early, it shows up later as crisis, as debt, as stress, as emergency repairs, as loss of trust, as repeated appeals for help. What could have been planned for becomes something we are forced to react to. But why do we delay? So part of the reason we delay these conversations is cultural. So in the Caribbean, we pride ourselves on resilience. We say, well, we'll manage. And many times we do. But managing through crisis is not the same as preparing to avoid it. And why do we wait? So waiting until crisis is the most expensive decision of all. It costs us financially, it costs emotionally, and more often limits the choices we have. By the time risk becomes visible, our options are already reduced. So understanding risk is not about being afraid. It is about being honest. It is about asking simple questions early. What could go wrong? How bad could it be? What can I do to reduce the impact? These questions apply to families, businesses, institutions, and country alike. If we want stronger businesses, better governance, and sustainable development, we must be willing to talk about risk before it becomes crisis. Not to blame, not to panic, but to plan. So this platform exists to have those conversations openly and responsibly, to break down complex ideas in a way that makes sense, and to create space for question, dialogue, and shared learning. Because stronger decisions today lead to fewer emergencies tomorrow. So in our next conversation, I'll talk about the difference between risk and poor planning, and why many of the problems we face are not surprises. They are decisions we postponed. So you can submit questions in the comments. You can message me, or where appropriate, I'll address them publicly so others can learn as well. So in closing, risk is not about fear. It is about responsibility. So this is CaribERISK, helping Caribbean people understand decisions, system, and consequences before they become crisis.